Hello, welcome to Skye's Sweaty Record Review, episode 194, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after leaving the gym. Or, as it is today, in my office. I guess I'll call these episodes office hours episodes. So in this office hour, I'm going to be talking about the new Kim Gordon record, No Home Record. And I have to get pretty professorial on this, especially being a French professor and someone who teaches about feminist theory. But before I get there, I just want to tease one thing. I am going to tell the world's best and worst Sonic Youth pun, or song parody, at the end of this video. So if that interests you, skip to the end or watch my whole take on the Kim Gordon record. I think it's going to be good. So this is the thing, right? Before I even talk about the record, or before I talk about my opinions of Kim Gordon and Sonic Youth in general, I want to talk about the sort of intertextuality implied by the title of this album. No Home Record is a very overt reference to the very recent documentary by Chantal Ackerman, No Home Movie. If you haven't seen it, it's a long, hard watch, which is a documentary basically of a woman right before she died and her interviewing her mother and sort of showing people in her life. And the thing is that Chantal Ackerman, I believe, is the key to understanding No Home Record entirely. I am not a Chantal Ackerman expert. I have not seen all of her movies. I mostly know her best-known movie. Let's see the whole title. Jean Dielman, 23, Quai de Commerce, 1080, Bruxelles. This movie, which, if you haven't seen it, is one of my favorite movies. As you can tell, it's kind of hard to find. I had to buy a Korean bootleg of it in order to get a copy of it. But it's an amazing movie. And the thing is that Chantal Ackerman is known for making very uncomfortable movies. Movies that are extremely feminist, but not overtly feminist. This movie, as an example, it's all about this woman and her life as a sort of single mother living in Brussels in the city. And some things happen, but for the most part, it's about the monotony of her day. And the way that that's shown is by very, very long cuts, just like it's her cleaning potatoes, I think it is, and it takes like half an hour. And you're just sitting there and you're watching her. And it's sort of, the idea is that like these are actions that have been taken, that women have been doing for generations and generations and generations. And now there's a younger generation of women who are able to do other things, able to do the things that are usually reserved just for men. But sort of before that transition completely ends, and before we hopefully reach a point of complete equality, there's this move to sort of glorify and make heroic that which was seen as just being domestic and boring. And so if you haven't seen Jean Dielman, do yourself a favor and see it. It is as important as any other movie in the French language. And I'm a French professor, so you have to take me seriously. You see, I got Magritte up there, okay? This is not a pipe. This is the most important movie you've probably never seen. Give yourself a couple hours, turn off your phone. If you allow yourself to be distracted by it, you won't enjoy it. So if she's making this album and she's calling it No Home Record, she's very clearly evoking Chantal Ackerman. So with this kind of in mind, I realized that that's basically what this record is trying to do. If you scan the titles, they're like Airbnb, Cookie Butter. They seem to be about her actual life. I mean, the life of Kim Gordon, as I think I would imagine it, and as I think you might imagine it. And she's able to describe it with this sort of honesty in which she's not trying to make herself seem more authentic, you know. She's not trying to seem like some New York scenester who's scrabbling to get enough money to pay rent. She's this sort of alternative rock founding goddess living her life and continuing and sort of going on these extended, almost meandering meditations on the nature of her life. And in so doing, she makes it heroic. She makes shopping at Trader Joe's, as an example, something heroic. She is able to do for herself a little bit what Chantal Ackerman could do for Jean Dielman or her own mother. And at times this album seems unfocused. It seems like it's just super long. You know, like just like, okay, the song is over. I kind of get it. I mean, she doesn't really rhyme. There's a song, Murdered Out, which is a good example. It just kind of seems to keep going. That track, Cookie Butter, is maybe the best example lyrically, because it's just sort of going on and on. It's a list of things that she does or wishes that she had done. But as you go on, and this track is, I think, particularly important, it's one of two that she wrote alone, you really, at least I believe, that she was walking around in Trader Joe's, which is where most people get cookie butter, which is a fairly specialized food, and had some kind of minor existential crisis. And this record shows that existential crisis in music form. It's kind of funny, it's kind of absurd, it feels, what's the word the kids use these days? Bougie, but it's honest. And bougie and honest is way better than faux-bohemian, which is another term I think I came up with recently, faux-bohemian. I'm sure someone else did. So I want to get to the album musically. First, I should probably get my sort of explanation of my opinion of Sonic Youth in general. So if you don't know, Kim Gordon was one of the primary members of Sonic Youth, along with her then husband, Thurston Moore. And if you are my age, 42, or a little bit older, Sonic Youth sort of haunts your musical existence. I remember being a freshman and seeing my future lead singer, Keith, and he had the Sonic Youth Goo t-shirt. And I just thought, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I don't know what Sonic Youth is, I don't know what Goo is, but that is cool. And that sort of feeling of like, this is the cool band, really hurt my appreciation of their music. I always felt like it was something I was supposed to like, but never really liked that much. I would buy their albums, but I wouldn't really ever love them. Like I think I owned like 7 or 8 cassettes. And I would listen to them, but I listened to them sort of the same way that I go to a Marvel movie, you know, like, well, this is what people like me do, so I better do this, because I do this. I'm an alternative kid, so I better listen to the coolest alternative music. Pretty emblematic of that is a bumper sticker, which I'll put up here, which I put on my car. It was a Sonic Youth bumper sticker, but I covered up the youth, so it just says Sonic. And I wasn't trying to be punk rock or aggro about it, but I liked the bumper sticker, but I didn't really want to transmit to the world that, like, I'm a Sonic Youth guy. Because at a certain point, that sort of came to mean a kind of poser to me, you know? Like, you know, there's noise rock, and that's basically what Sonic Youth was, kind of punk noise rock, but I didn't really like it. Which is a brief way of saying, I like this album. This album is my favorite album that has anything to do with Sonic Youth. I think I've listened to everything Sonic Youth has ever done, and I like this way more than all of it. But I'm also not a fan. There's another element, another kind of psychological element, which is, you know, the members of Sonic Youth were married. Ironically, that lead singer would go on to date one of the singers and other singers in my band, and so I kicked her out. I was not a cool kid in high school. I apologize. If you're watching Buick, I made a mistake. I was a jerk. That was her name. Although actually she's making music now, so maybe I'll review one of her records, because she continued making music despite me kicking her out of the band for dating the cool guy with the Sonic Youth shirt. So, you know, they were married. And the funny thing is, I used to date a girl, young woman at the time, and she went to Smith College in Western Massachusetts. And so I remember going out and visiting her, and at that time, in the late 90s, it was not difficult to see Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth and Kim Gordon taking their kid to daycare. And I actually saw them taking their kid to daycare. I could tell it was Thurston Moore because he's like 11 feet tall. And I could tell it was Kim Gordon because I always thought that Kim Gordon looked like Janice from the Muppets. But maybe that's just some weird, I don't know. Anyways, a blonde woman and a very tall guy looking very punk rock taking their kids to school. So when they got divorced in 2011, I sort of took it personally. Like, it felt to me like a real personal loss. You know, like some celebrity couples, you know, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, you know, you're just like, yeah, whatever, that doesn't matter. But some, like, you know, hit you hard, like Will Arnett and Amy Poehler. Like when they were together, that made me sort of believe in love. And then when they broke up, that made me feel like love couldn't exist. And so I was really disappointed when they got divorced, which is stupid because I didn't even really like their music that much. But I sort of liked what they represented, this kind of avant-garde family that could keep it together. But I guess they couldn't. I saw some interview with Kim Gordon where she basically just said, like, yeah, it was the most boring divorce ever. You know, he chased after some younger woman. You know, just like nothing cool or punk rock about the dissolution of their marriage. So that's my kind of history, which is why I was really surprised and happy that I liked this album so much. It opens up with Sketch Artist, which is a good example of what this album is like. Again, weird strings and very aggressive lyrics, no real rhyming, attacking sounds. But there's also kind of moments of tenderness, and this record in general is a combination of sort of like her screaming and being angry, and then small moments of tenderness. I'm moving my paper so I don't look over there. There's my notes. Not a script, just notes. In this song too shows how a lot of this album is using modern like production techniques with sort of a punk rock ethos. So like this one's kind of grimy, like it has like a grime sound to it, like modern grimy electronic dance music, but with her kind of talking over it in the way that she does. Later, a track, Paprika Pony, is basically just a straight up trap song with the very in vogue thumb piano being played and the ricky ticky hi-hat and that whole thing. Although that's basically a vague, I think that's a really like deep sex song, but I can't, I only listened like once. So as far as I can tell, she talks about Adam and Eve. The track I'm going to use as the stamp, as the sort of representative song, is a track called Airbnb. Already, the fact that she's rapping about it, or not rapping, but singing about Airbnb announces sort of the nature of this record. Who would sing about Airbnb? That's such a stupid thing, but it's basically her taking an inventory in a similar way that Chantal Ackerman takes inventory of things and sort of says, isn't this great? With this layer of sarcasm and irony, in which case you know that it's not. So I'm going to play this for you with a little warning. This is the most Sonic Youth that this album sounds. For the most part, this album stays away from Sonic Youth sounding. There isn't a lot of guitar. There isn't even that much bass, really. There's a lot of bass, but it's not. It's more bass in a sort of a funk, underground punk sound as opposed to like a rock and roll sound. So I'll play you a little bit of this, listen to the lyrics, sort of the sadness of her current existence as it's expressed through these lyrics. Go. She is able to be cool enough that whatever she says is awesome. Like the way that she talks, the tone of her voice, I think that's how a lot of people feel about Tom Waits. I'm not personally a big Tom Waits fan, but or that the Paul Williams album that I reviewed last year, just sort of like a grizzled veteran of art who's able to talk and just it's stupid to say, but it's true. The kind of angry wisdom of their voice is just totally engaging. And the whole album, I felt that whole way. Everything she said, I just felt totally drawn into. Just the kind of the raw, screaming lack of structure, but still, she's just really cool. And I think I never felt that way about Thurston Moore. So maybe that was my problem with Sonic Youth, is it should have been more Kim Gordon and less Thurston Moore. Because Thurston Moore, I don't know. I never thought that he was cool enough to pull off the airs that he had. Anyways, not that I'm taking sides in the divorce. Okay. Then the track Murdered Out is kind of a Rage Against the Machine-ish, if Rage Against the Machine didn't suck. Sorry, I hate that band. But the kind of weird, angry, metal, funk, down, great off-key screaming to begin. Super electronic-y track, Don't Play It Back, with sort of a catchy chorus idea. And that's where I realized that this album, lyrically, is mostly slam poetry. I don't really like slam poetry that much because I find it often unintentionally humorous. But in this case, the way that she does it with that super cool, charismatic voice and this great sound bed, it's just excellent. I think she says, golden vanity, you can pee in the ocean, it's free. It's just great. Cookie Butter is the next track. Like I said, it's one of 2 tracks not co-written by this guy, James Rayson? I don't know who he is, but he's very much all over the album, and I imagine he had a lot to do with what makes this a great record, but I don't know. By the song Hungry Baby, I was a little bit tapped out. Like, you know, there's a point where when an album is amazingly consistent in its atmosphere and tone, that I sort of like back out and I'm not as interested in it anymore. But then I realized that was kind of potentially on purpose, because it's like watching Gene Dealman. It's like, okay, I get it. And that's where Ackerman is important. Once you get tired of seeing this, once you feel like I've had enough, that's where you actually start engaging with the work meaningfully. Like once you get sick enough of this woman washing the dishes, you start to understand the monotony and the tyranny of her domestic situation. Ooh, I pulled that sentence out. Whew. See, that's the kind of sentence I would write if I had a script. But what was it? The boredom and the tyranny of a domestic situation? Okay. And it is kind of interesting because the song Hungry Baby, it's not clear what the baby is. Is it a lover? Is it a baby? Who knows? But then that sort of ennui that I felt was saved by the track Earthquake, which is the second of her only delivered tracks. And this is where she loses a little bit of her cool and becomes a little bit more vulnerable. And I really like that. The moments where you feel that she's not just this, you know, I imagine smoking, disaffected at the cafe person who lets you a little bit more into her personal life. I think it's quite nice. We see that a lot on the next track, Get Your Life Back, which is the last track. Yeah, it's spelled Get Your Life Back. And it's sort of this sad track, and it's like sarcastically, it's like Get Your Life Back Yoga. So she must have seen a sign that said Get Your Life Back Yoga. And I assume this is in reference to trying to get back after a divorce. And she says, I feel bad for you, I feel bad for me every day. And I imagine, I don't know, maybe she's singing about someone else, but at least it feels to me like the sort of pain that one feels when one is unhappily divorced. So, there's my review. I really like this record. I think I am going to listen to it more. I'm very happy that it exists as a feminist scholar. I'm very happy that Chantal Ackerman is being sort of cross-referenced. And I think this is something that's important. I think that we need to learn to allow female artists to be as indulgent and solipsistic as male artists, because there's a lot of great stuff in there. And I think from it comes truly great art, as is the case here. I promised you the best Sonic Youth joke in the world, the song parody. So the first time I heard the song Schizophrenia, the first time I heard it, so back then, in 92? I don't know when I heard it first, somewhere around there. Instead of saying Schizophrenia, it is Halloween time, so I sang it as Transylvania is Dracula's home. So there you go. Was it worth the 18 minutes to wait to get that joke? Probably not, but anyway. So there you go. Until next time, for Gene Dealman and Jerry Lewis and Tom and Jerry and Renee Magritte and Kim Gordon, there's the camera.